Good morning, good morning, good morning. I did it. I made it before noon. I hit that go live button right as the clock struck 11:59. I can still say that every single ASTROLABE has started in the morning. Oh, it's been a wild morning. I had to run out and run an errand this morning. I had to go buy some clothes for an event I'm doing this afternoon. One of the ownership groups that I'm a part of here in the San Antonio, Austin area does a casino events company. So we do casino events for work parties and that sort of thing. And we have an event this afternoon that I got roped in for to deal craps, which will be very interesting because my experience with craps is that I have dealt it. I have dealt for craps at casino events 3 times. This will be my 4th time. I still barely know what I'm doing. I have never played the game. I watched some quick primers before, went out and dove in my first time. So it'll be interesting. But I had to make sure I got back here in time to crank a show out because there's too much going on right now. I've got a number of stories to hit today, and I had to toss them out of the stack because I'll be a little short on time. I got to try to get done by, I don't know, hour and a half or so. So I had to save a couple of them for tomorrow. Tomorrow's show is going to be a great one. Particularly, we're going to talk about DeSantis doomers. But they came across my timeline and annoyed me, so I want to make fun of them for a little bit. Coffee, Buck Johnson. Of course, I've got my coffee here. I don't know if you guys ever pay attention or notice. I'll say it now so you guys will. I go through a lot of different drinks throughout the course of a show. I typically have at least one thing of coffee, at least one thing of raw milk with honey. I have often a thing of juice, either apple juice or orange juice. And then occasionally I have an energy drink here as well. So I don't know if you guys notice all the different drink containers that I lift throughout the day, but I do have my coffee. Ah ha 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 ha. Ah ha ha. Oh, drinking coffee regarding dealing craps. Ah ha ha ha. Dealing with craps. Yeah. Thank you, Buck. Thank you, sir. Do me a favor. Hit the like button. We got 41 watching on YouTube now. 18 likes. Hit the like button. Helps us know how much you like the show, and YouTube likes it when we get videos with likes on them. So you guys are typically really good at it. Also, you can send a super chat, or you can become a channel member if you'd like to have your name show up in green, like Buck and Column Rosh and White and Wit. So if you'd like to become a channel member, $5 a month throws us a little cash so we can keep doing this. And what was the other thing? Oh, I guess I should say welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. This is a morning variety show that I can continue calling a morning variety show because I did hit the go live button at 11:59 this morning, and all other time zones don't exist. But we do this every Monday through Friday. Come through and go through tweets or Instagrams or articles or YouTube videos or anything that happened to come across my timeline that I found interesting that I want to share with you guys. So if this is your first time watching, or if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I checked yesterday. I was looking at some of the numbers on the channel, and yesterday it said I think something like 77% of viewership is from subscribed viewers. So most of you out there are subscribers, which is awesome. There's a remaining 23% of you that we need to chase down and Gomer pile into hitting the subscribe button. Colin Rosh says, only man on the internet that says my name correct. Well, that's a title I'm proud to have. The only reason is because I asked you and you told me how to say it, and I've got a good memory apparently. All right, let's hit our first clip of the day. This one hits home. This one hits very close to home. Growing up as a Christian homeschooler, Boniface option. It's homeschooler mating ritual.
Oh!
This man is an absolute specimen. He would have captured the attention of all the other guys, because that's the only reason guys are doing this. Like, supposedly this is for the women, but the women don't give a shit about this. I never had a woman who was this is me just telling on myself. I know how popular I was growing up, and I never had a woman who was like, "Ooh, look at him carrying those chairs." Maybe it was part of what went with the mystique or something, but when a guy's doing that, this is intramasculine competition. Does he have emergency tampons? That would be what would really define his absolute chadness, wouldn't it? We're gonna get to Tampon Tim here in a little bit. Okay. Patchwork, lazy people make multiple trips, right? Yeah. No, actually, it's the other way around for me. Like, I'm lazy, so I do one trip. I'm glad to take the lazy badge. That's why I'm going to do everything in one trip. One trip. Next one we got here. This is the average SEC family, and I think this one probably hits a little close to home as well.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Grace with an IE. Proud mama bear of Haley, Daily, Gailey, and our fur baby Cooper.
Hey, I'm Tyler with a T.
Cooper.
The tide is done this year. With Saban gone, it's over. We were supposed to renew our wedding vows at the Morgan Whaling concert, but he canceled.
But it's okay. Guess what we're doing tonight? We're gonna go scout for my boutique. You literally told me scout for my boutique. I am not touching your doodle tonight.
Thank you.
Why is your back so damn sweaty?
Carrying the weight of this family.
They have a yoga studio.
I was hoping to get some Zen
You
myself.
literally know the praise band drummer literally OD'd on that.
Love the Zenner, hate the Zen.
Tyler, I am not
Love the Zenner, hate the Zen. You know who? Write that down.
touching your doodle tonight. Hey girl, oh, you look so good.
She has been competing in the Summer Olympics.
Damn CNN watcher.
My purse is in your trunk.
Do not call the bed a trunk. I thought you was a Southern woman.
You wear that stupid hat because your reputation precedes you.
I can't see you over my trunk. It's one of those cyber cups.
Cups. Those things are ugly as hell.
You know who drives that? People that watch CNN.
Baby, let me use your phone. Tyler James. Why in the hell is the Hawk Tuah girl in your search history? Let me out. I'm telling the youth pastor.
First time I had quiet in a minute.
Can you get him the quarters instead?
Hell
This is
yeah.
kind of sweet. I think the next time I'm gonna do one of them Gaelic ales.
Gaelic? There they go, shoving that pride agenda down our throat.
Gaelic. It's Russian for tiny hunt.
Hey, baby, they're playing Margaritaville.
Text me back to Gatlinburg. R.I.P. Jimmy.
Now he's having all the cheeseburgers in all of paradise.
Cheeseburger in paradise. Thank you for coming and not finding my boutique like Tyler told me he would.
Well, it looks like I'm going to be finding Zen after all.
Tyler, now you're gonna be finding Zen.
You just committed Zen fidelity. I'm going to pick that up. Let's go tear up the town.
They are really, really good. There's layers to that one. I might go full. What is it? Cooper's the art hoe. Am I like the comedy hoe or something? If I wasn't on a shortened time schedule today, I would I'd dig into that one a little bit more. There's layers to the comedy at play there. All right, this one's this is a little bit of pandering or a little what do you call it? Like low hanging fruit maybe, but it made me laugh, so I'm going to share it.
Hello, and thank you for calling technical support. I am Kamla. How may I help you?
Yeah, hi. I got a pop-up on my computer, and it told me to call this number.
Okay, I can help you, sir. But first you will need to drive to Walmart and purchase $500 gift cards.
Well, great. I'm a Democrat, so that makes perfect sense.
The other reason I wanted to highlight this is because with all of these fake AI videos, every single time, the thing I'm going to look for is the upper lip. See how realistic the movement of the upper lip is. And there's
Hello, and
let me mute
thank you
this.
for...
Just watching it muted. You can tell it's fake, but it's getting a lot closer. There's a couple of these like that there. It almost looked completely real. They're getting to the point where if you were to cut frequently enough, you can get long enough brackets of realistic looking action that you can make it look really real. And this is just some meme that someone made. Okay. Now we gotta update on our girl. She was valiant. She made a valiant effort. She went in there, she put her heart behind it, and she wound up in 6th place in her race, the Secretary of State. This is Valentina Gomez. She said, God made me the most prolific woman in politics in just 7 months. Love me or hate me, you still watch. We've been talking about her lately, so I figured I'd play the update here. She's wearing the shirt with the American flag that says, don't be weak and gay. I think I want that shirt. Can we get that in like a hoodie fashion?
That was the most fun I've ever had. I put the fear of God on these groomers, pedophiles, and corrupt politicians. I want to thank the 47,000 people that voted for me. 47,000
people voted for her. 47,000 people. That's impressive. Especially considering that she wasn't actually running for office. Like this was a political campaign done for the purpose of creating a social media persona. This was not a social media marketing campaign for a political campaign. And she's wildly successful.
Rejected millions, almost got arrested, shot big, beautiful guns, triggered every liberal in America, didn't pay for ads, got hundreds of millions of views, and we did it all without holding a single fundraiser. Hollywood, the establishment, and the Democrats all came after me because I didn't want this gay shit being shoved down our throats, men in women's sports, and babies getting killed. And yes, I lost this election. But I'm young, beautiful, and rich as fuck. Let's make America great again.
Bless. We didn't get the picture at the end of her. You know, the one of her like standing there, holding the gun, looking like she's in the military. We didn't get that one at the end of this. I wonder why that is. She's obviously like, I mean, this is top like S tier expert level grifting, and we here at the King Pilled Show are very much we very much endorse grifting. I think grifting is great. It's fantastic. It's an art form. It's an industry unto itself. Just grift for the things that I like. Grift for the things that I want. And if you do that successfully, then like all the things that make her able to grift on this, the fact that she's some hot Latina chick who says all the things you're not allowed to say, like those are what enable her to actually be an effective grifter. And if she's able to do this and capitalize on this, it can be entirely for her own self-interest. I don't care. She still serves as a vanguard that's moving, breaking the frame, moving the Overton window, shaking people up, becoming a way of normalizing a lot of these sorts of things. So if the way that some of our values are going to be normalized is through transparently grifting, but passionate and effective, irreverent chick, then so be it. I'll take it. It'll be interesting to watch her and see where she goes, because like from here she can easily go. I'd say most likely is she probably goes like the Black Rifle Coffee route, essentially. Not Black Rifle Coffee specifically, but that sort of, Kyle Rittenhouse, Black Rifle Coffee, sort of like, I don't know, conservative grifters. I think that's probably the most likely route that she goes. On the other hand, she could also go like, Tommy Loren. She could go completely, or Lauren Southern. Or she could be Marjorie Taylor Greene, kind of, Carrie Lake sort of character, which they have some utility in their own right. So it'll be interesting to watch how her career proceeds over the next few years. She could also just fade out and not really do anything, and she made a bag off of this, and she's gonna move on to something else. But she seems like she's motivated enough that she's gonna turn up somewhere. All right. The next thing. So this was some more entertaining performance art here. Bryce Mitchell talking about Candace Owens on with the twins, Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. And what I want you guys to watch here is the reactions from the twins, the Hodge twins. I haven't watched them a lot. Just kind of vaguely aware of them. They've always been kind of in that sort of grifter, conservative kind of bag, but then they've gotten pretty edgy lately, to where they're doing a lot of noticing, and they're willing to talk about that publicly. So hey, I'll tip my hat to that. But they've got Bryce Mitchell on, and here's what he had to say.
I tell you right now, fuck you, Ben Shapiro. I'll beat your ass. And look, if you mess with Candace Owens,
we need to get a drop of that. Fuck you, Ben Shapiro. I'll beat your ass.
I promise you, if you lay one little greasy finger on Candace Owens, I'm going to beat your ass. I'm going to roll up on you, shirts off. I'm going to have the twins with me. We're going to beat your ass because you messed with Candace Owens. We're going to be looking shirts off, me in the middle. We're going to look like a 6-foot-tall Oreo coming at you, buddy. We're going to stomp your ass to the ground. Don't you mess with Candy, baby. I'm telling you right now, I don't like Ben Shapiro. I'll say it to his face. Bring him on the show. because he wants Christian people in this country that he already steals their tax dollars off of. He's part of this corrupted government. He's a piece of shit just like the rest of them. He wants us to go die to bomb Muslim kids for his Jewish people because he's too scared to do it. How come Ben Shapiro, since he's all about this war, how come he don't sign up for the army? Because he's a bitch.
Yeah. I'm
Straight up.
These war.
Man, say it with your chest. You know the bell curve meme? This is like this is the low end of the bell curve. This is what the low end of the bell curve looks like. And I say this with great love and affection. This is great. I don't think I saved Pete Quinones tagged Jason in it and said vengeful son. He had let me see if I can find Pete's quote tweet of it. Had me rolling. Maybe he deleted it. It's a little older. We'll look and yeah, here. I was sitting here I was imagining Pete sitting here watching this and reacting to it. I was cracking up. Shout out Pete Quinones. All right. We were just talking about Fetterman, and Fetterman has weighed in on the election.
You match up Trump and Harris, which I think that's really what this is really about. And I do believe he's going to win Pennsylvania. And of course, it's going to be close, but I've been maintaining that whether it's Biden, whether it was Clinton, or whether now it's with Vice President Harris, it's going to be very close. I think if you match up Trump.
He's such a fascinating character. He's strongly endorsing Kamala, yet he routinely breaks with the rank and file, but he doesn't do it in a like a guy who likes sniffing his own farts, like Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin will break with the Democratic rank and file all the time, and I think he might even be officially independent now. And Bernie Sanders has also been an independent. So these guys have like their safe little zones where they are able to make their critiques without, just kind of being the token. But he's something different. There's something very strange about him. He's like vocally in support of Kamala Harris, an outspoken Democrat, like working class guy. He's this gigantic ogre of a man who had a stroke and somehow started thinking better or something. He's just a fascinating story. If John Fetterman had been around or the equivalent of John Fetterman had been around in like the 90s or the 2000s, he would have had like a Trump effect on people. Now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's that other weird there's that other weird senator guy over there, the big ogre dude that wears a hoodie and basketball shorts everywhere he goes, and now he's like, yeah, I think Trump's probably going to win Pennsylvania, and which saying Trump's going to win Pennsylvania is saying Trump's going to win the election. So he's outright just moved on. This is a couple of interesting data points with Fetterman. His little beef with Josh Shapiro, which seems quite personal, and then being just he's talking to Newsmax too, and he's just whatever. I'm just gonna speak it. I'm just gonna call it like I see it. I don't know how do you be the call it like you see it guy on things that are this risky or controversial with respect to the media ecosystem that he exists in, but yet at the same time still fully endorse Kamala and be John Fetterman, be a Democrat senator who votes with Democrat senator. It's very, very odd thing. And I'd be curious to see if he winds up being imagine John Fetterman becomes the new Chuck Schumer. Imagine John Fetterman being Chuck Schumer in like 10 years. Wouldn't that be an amazing Fetterman and AOC being the Schumer and the Schumer and Pelosi archetypes, kind of in their the power they wield and their ability to embody the heart of the Democrats. It'd be very, very interesting. But I think we're headed to something closer to that than we are to whatever has been for the last little while. Another one here, similar to we talked about Trump and Aiden Ross yesterday, which was which is part of. Okay, I can't do it. I can't do the DeSantis thing today. I've got to save it for tomorrow. We got to keep moving through here. So Trump goes on Aiden Ross, and which is legitimately a big deal. This is legitimately an extremely newsworthy event that dominates lots of conversation. And then we had the Kai Cenat, and nobody told me I'm saying it wrong, so I'm just going to assume it's Kai Cenat. I don't care enough to go actually look it up. Here's a similar guy. This is the first time I've ever heard of this guy. Top streamer Phantom? Phanum. Whatever his name is. Phantom. It's oh my God. Phantom. His name is Phantom. Black-pilled once again. Top streamer Phantom says, we are cooked if Kamala Harris beats Donald Trump. He has 6.1 million subscribers on YouTube and 2.5 million Twitch followers. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to understand most of what he says here, but a streamer with an audience like this, talking like this, is, I think, portends things.
I think we legal almost everywhere, but if Kamala Harris win, y'all niggas is cooked. I'm letting y'all know now. Y'all niggas is done. It's over. I hope y'all ready for all that shit. Cause I don't think they're gonna let Trump win. I'm gonna give it a buzz. I don't know how this just got political. I don't know. But what am I dead? I don't think they're gonna let this nigga win, bro.
I picked up approximately 12 words. Basically, I think if I'm trusting Dom to interpret here for me, he says, I think we legal almost everywhere, but if Kamala Harris win, all y'all niggas is cooked. I'm laying on them. Y'all niggas is done. It's over. I think we, he just repeats it. But what am I doing? I don't think they're going to let this nigga win, bro. So there's something kind of profound about, again, low end of the bell curve, but also seeing something that's as clear as I don't think they're going to let him win. Like, this is very obviously a rigged game. This is very obviously not any. This is the Zoomer perspective on stuff. Like, fuck this. This isn't real. They're not going to let him win. These systems, these institutions are all completely degenerate and corrupt. Persist throughout their generation, and this is the low end of the bell curve. Again, noticing that. All right, so there's a. Well, let me play this one first. JD Vance is out on his media tour, and he's doing quite well. This happened yesterday. So JD Vance is from Benny Johnson, who apparently I'm not following again. JD Vance, after physically walking up to Kamala Harris's plane to ask why she's hiding from reporters. Hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months. I also thought you guys may get lonely because the VP doesn't answer questions from reporters. It's a very, very interesting clip because when I see Vance, like, he's not a commanding presence. He comes across as a little kind of ho-hum, and he's just a nice guy. He's just like a nice, decent, cool guy. comes across as very genuine. He's not like really insufferable and up his own ass like Mike Pence, and he's just kind of a dude. He's just like a dude that's doing a job, but he does these like I'm trying to I've been intuiting something, and I'm going to keep tracking it. But there's something he does where he is like pattern breaking. This is very unusual. This is a very unusual like pattern break type of move where he like how many politicians are going to go walk across the airplane tarmac to the press gaggle and sit there and like engage with him about this with this whole team of people. They all come walking across there. And he does it really like authentically. He's not being a dick about it. He's just like, it seems like she could at least maybe like talk to you guys. Like, don't you guys want to be able to ask her questions? And there's so Trump is kind of like is really hostile and antagonistic toward the media, where he's kind of like seriously, people, come on. Can we actually live in the real world here? Can you guys like break yourself out of your own asses? And it seems I don't know. I wouldn't expect it to necessarily be that great of an approach, but it seems to be effective. He comes off well whenever he does it. He's constantly walking the line of being just kind of like, oh, dude, man, you're a little too attached to the young emo fan in yourself. But he keeps managing to just to come off looking good whenever he does this. And I don't know if this is something he's doing himself authentically, or if he's they've got people who are saying, hey, JD, go do this thing here. And he's, oh, okay, I'll go do that. But from listening to the way he talks behind the scenes, like he's definitely got a lot more of an edge to him, which tells me that he's doing this kind of like just kind of like ho-hum nice guy routine is a little bit, it's done intentionally. So I think he's all the evidence taken together, I think there's more depth to him than he lets on, that I probably wouldn't have picked up on if I hadn't been following him and reading about him and studying him for a while. But yeah, this is a very this is an interesting clip. And I got a related one here from Clandestine on Twitter. War Clandestine says, just so we're all clear, Kamala said, say it to my face to JD Vance during a rally. So Vance pulls up to Air Force 2 on the tarmac, calls Kamala out for avoiding the press, and then says he wanted to get a good look at his new plane. I don't care who you are, that's badass. I mean, and when you put it that way, yeah. And of course, it gives you the opportunity to get this photo. This one here looks kind of interesting. I don't think it's her, but pray for JD Vance. We'll put it that way. But this is just a freaking cool shot. So whether this is JD Vance working on cleaning up his own image, or whether it's the team like crafting his image, they're doing really well. He's coming off very well. Doesn't help that the competition is just an absolute comedy of clusterfucks. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Wit says, we're all so used to boomers. This is how millennials are. We all want to be Jim from The Office. Right. He's very much embodying the millennial personality, and he's doing it in a way that comes off authentically, where AOC's everything is all like super staged and performative and dramatic and everything, where he's a dude who's running for vice president, and he's going to drop over and say something to the media and be like, like, I'm running against an opponent here, but they're not here. Why is this? You guys aren't ever going to ask them questions or press them. You're not going to do your jobs at all. Which, for people who are used to a lot of hostility, you got to remember, these are actual human beings that see each other on a regular basis. They're around each other all the time. They'll do camera work, but then off camera, they'll like chat, and they're just, they'll be standing next to each other in line at the cafeteria or whatever. So there's a personal dynamic here. And he seems to be playing on that personal dynamic. He's not going to come in and be really belligerent and hostile to the media. He's gonna come in and be like, dude, can you guys finally just do your job? Can you do even just a little bit? Can you recognize the stakes of where we're at and just do your job? And it's I don't know, it works well. It's not Caesar. There's nothing. But I don't think we're at the Caesar time yet. So Anyways, something else to keep an eye on for a little while. Let's move on here. Got to keep jamming. So during a fireside chat yesterday, SpaceX President and COO Gwynne Shotwell confirmed that Starlink can provide everybody in rural and semi-rural U.S. with high-speed broadband internet connectivity for a very small fraction of the price of laying down a fiber optic cable.
So what's brilliant about this constellation concept is that it is very complementary with fiber. Currently the beam projection on the ground is about 22 kilometers. We'll keep shrinking that. And you could put a couple hundred users on a beam currently. Every generation we do makes it beam smaller, more people per beam. If you put a 22-kilometer beam down in the middle of Manhattan, you get a couple hundred users, but there's 10 million people in Manhattan. So Starlink can serve people in cities, but fiber is much better suited to highly populated areas. Now it takes, I know it depends on where you are and even what country, frankly, but fiber can be $10,000 to $30,000 per mile, $10,000 to $30,000 per mile. I can bridge that gap with one Starlink kit, which is $500 and service depending, $50 to $100 a month service. So what we really want to make sure folks understand is, yeah, we can serve cities, but we can't serve everybody in cities, right? But we can serve everybody in rural U.S. and semi-rural
Everybody in rural U.S.
We could.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the Lord of the Town Square says true. And then relatedly, this popped up. Martyrmaid said, an excavator cut through my internet cable yesterday, so I went to Best Buy, got a Starlink kit for $299, and after 15 minutes of setup was back online. I'm very rural. The antenna is just sitting on the deck surrounded by trees, but the signal is very fast. Amazing technology. Someone said, paid ad, and he said, fair question, but no. Although if Starlink wants to hook up some cabbage, I'll post this all day. Just blown away by how easy and effective it was after thinking I was in for an ordeal when the line first got cut. My family has had personal experience with this. My parents live out in the boonies. They were on satellite internet for several years. I don't remember exactly how long, and it probably took 10 years off my dad's life at least. Just the absolute headache of dealing with. It was way worse than dial-up. It was just it was like slower than dial-up the vast majority of the day, except for between like midnight and 4 a.m. or something like that. And they were paying $150 a month or something absurd for like 30 gigs of data for the entire house for the entire month. And if they used up their allotment, so when they had that 30 gigs, then it would be okay. It would be decent. But like you might struggle to stream an HD YouTube video. You might have to bring it down to 360 or something like that. But if they used up that 30 gigs a month, then it was $10 a gig after that. So they were spending like $500 a month at least on internet costs. And it was an absolute nightmare and just terrible. Then they got, once they got Starlink coverage out there, my dad was the point where he was like, if you want to put a cell tower in my backyard right through my garden, I don't even care. I want to be able to connect to the world when I'm at home. And so I think it might have been HughesNet. It might have been. I don't remember. This is in Washington State. So as soon as they had Starlink coverage, he went for it immediately. And now he said it's like having like full 5G, the equivalent of having full 5G at home at all times. Just no problem whatsoever. So it's completely transformed their lives. This was when they had like 5 or 6 adults in the house at the time that they were doing all this. So, I mean, say what you want about Elon. Starlink is an absolute game changer. Combining the ability of the creative tools that are available online now to leverage up to expand your own intelligence, combining that with the ability to connect to the internet from literally anywhere that you want and travel with it and everything, that's a game changer for people who want to take advantage of it. H. Reardon says, "Hola, there was a Harris ad before he came on when I clicked on the show." Well, I I'm glad that they're sending they're posting advertising for Kamala Harris on a King Pill video. I don't think that I think that's wasted advertising money, I would say. But I'll take it. You from Washington? Yeah, I grew up in Western Washington, greater Seattle area. So let's see. Next, make sure that was that all I had on that window? Yeah. So I haven't really been following everything that's going on in the UK. It's not my country. It's, I've got the basics of knowledge of what's happening there, and I think it's bad and it sucks. And hopefully it is resolved in a positive way for our guys. But I do think this is funny now. Right-wingers are now planting decoy protests in the UK, and when the police arrive, the only people they find are armed Islamist mobs who mobilize to attack the fake protests. So we've got some clever ones among the limeys there. Also, relatedly, Barry Stanton. What the hell? You guys need to follow Barry Stanton. Americans are raiding British police live chats in an effort to assist British patriots, and it's fucking hilarious. So the British police have live chats online, apparently, and people are hitting them up. Thank you for contacting us, Nigel. How can I help you? Hi, is this a bot? I want to report a crime. No, it is not a bot. I'm not going to read that out loud. He says, sorry, it was my cat. She's very racist. And then DurhamPolice.uk. Oi, Gavalt, can you believe it? Hello, please send help. I'm hiding in one of the tunnels underneath our synagogue right now. It is an offense to make false reports to emergency services. I'll be closing this chat down and blocking your IP address. Please, sir, this bloody mattress is very uncomfortable. There's a couple others of these. I share these because, number one, it's funny, and there's a whole bunch here. I'll throw the link in the live chat for anyone who wants to go read the rest of them. This is, I think, was there another one? Oh yeah, two other stories related to this that I'll play real quick. One of them is this is a police response.
This is our great British police force. This is what you got to have respect for. Look, it's a fucking midget. They got a midget to deal with the rioters.
Rioters.
I mean, for fuck's sake, what has this country come to? It's fucking hilarious. Fucking hell, we're fucked.
And then this one, shared by Raw Egg Nationalist. You got the Belfast Telegraph saying, exclusive, paramilitaries refuse to use influence to end racially motivated Belfast riots. UDA and UVF sources say trouble, quote, nothing to do with them and insist it is a policing matter. And Raw Egg Nationalist said, stop and appreciate what an incredible admission this is if true. The British authorities have been in contact with paramilitaries in Northern Ireland in an attempt to get them to help end the riots there. If this isn't a narco-tyranny, what is? What all of this indicates is profound incompetence. These are desperately evil people who are also profoundly incompetent. That or they're incredibly desperate, one of the two. There's a big parallel here going on because the people who are doing this in the UK are the same people who are have been occupying the DNC for a while now. There's an alignment of the same interests. And they are profoundly retarded and or incredibly desperate because they are just stepping on their own dicks all over the place. Super inefficient. No ability to coordinate. Like super easily outsmarted and outfoxed, and all it takes is just a little bit of pushback against them and they start pissing all over themselves. There's a lesson to be learned there. All right, let's get to, let me do this here real quick. hit retweet on the stream. Drop it in front of some people again. And then we are going to get to the next story here. We're going to talk a little bit of Tampon Tim. Close this window. Open this window. First thing we're going to hit is, as someone mentioned in the chat yesterday, Labrador Skeptic has a great tweet thread on this, and we're going to give that a read now. She says, speaking as a Midwesterner, let me give you my opinion of Tim Walz. Is it Waltz or Walz? I think it might be Walz, which is even weirder. Tim Walz. Walz needs to be seen in the context of the rapid fall of Minnesota, and particularly what happened to the Twin Cities. The Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul used to be one of the nicest, safest cities in the United States. The Mary Tyler Moore Show was set there for good reason. It was a friendly, safe place. Minnesota used to be purple and quite centrist. The local Democratic Party is called the DFL, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. That was how Minnesota politics worked. The cities in the metro area allied with the unions, primarily in the mining Northeast, who allied with the farmers. They went against the Twin City suburbs and businessmen. It was always polite, and the state was even. The big shift happened with the mass influx of Somalis, along with the Dems trying to bring in blacks from other metro areas. The nice Republicans being controlled opposition, they of course did nothing to stop this process. The demographics changed sharply. Crime rates soared, and the political situation rearranged itself. Along with much of the country, enough of the suburbs switched to the Dems that along with the newly black metro areas, the Dems began to get decisive margins. Polite and nice stopped right there. The new DFL played strictly hardball politics. They also turned on their traditional constituencies of the farmers and the Iron Range union workers. As soon as they didn't need the votes, it was slap across the face and knife in the back. They had no need for those traditional white Americans or their traditional values. Minnesota rapidly became the most radical of the Midwestern states, even more so than Chicago-dominated Illinois. Walz is a snake and a chameleon. Yes, he hunts, does the fishing opener, and sometimes wears flannel shirts, all of which are used by the entirely Democratic Minnesota media to portray him as something he is not, a folksy politician with a common touch. Walz is despised in the outstate regions where the hunting and fishing are primarily done. Those areas have flipped from blue to solid red as they try to protect themselves from the radical in the Twin Cities, to no avail. The real Walz? He's the face of the Great Replacement and is followed by the Marxists, crushing the opposition. That's exactly why they want him as VP. He brings no election advantages. They're not worried about the election, but what comes after. So he has now... I'm basically convinced at this point that the Kamala Walz ticket is intentional sandbagging. I think that certain factions, the factions that are like staffing them, have been given free rein to go balls to the wall for a few months or several weeks at least. But it seems like this campaign has got to be destined to fail. That's the only way that any of this makes any sense to me. They are catastrophically bad, particularly for the ostensible demographic that's going to turn the election. You know, if the whole plan here was like to ensure the outcome result, then why would you want to run a profoundly incompetent, dorky, goofy campaign? Just an absolute terrible campaign that makes it even more improbable when you determine the result. This doesn't make any sense. I know people want to doom and galaxy brain about this. They're like, oh, they're doing it to demoralize us. No, these people, you are taking your view of the world and transplanting it into their mind and having them just do all the bad things. But they don't share your view of the world. They don't want to intentionally get super dorky and incompetent and humiliating and retarded, being like, oh, we're being so dumb. The stupid plebs don't realize how awful we are. There's no people who think like this. They're reeling. And it seems to me that, ever since the Trump attempted assassination, they're scrambling. And there's a realignment happening within the DNC. It has split. The last several weeks have been way too acrimonious among them for them, and there's way too much backstabbing and double crossing and leaking, and there's all out war going on within the DNC. And so we wind up with this like dopey goober just littered with red flags that were immediately, there's like existing out in the media already. It's not like something had to be unearthed. It took people a week to determine that this guy is very likely an actual Chinese agent and does a very good job of hiding it. He's he's got tons and tons of stuff on the record being really radical about LGBTQ and trans stuff, the whole tampon gate thing, all of that. Like, these are just like really easy things that are going to make him immediately electorally toxic. But then to top all of that, he has one of the most transparently gratuitous stolen valor controversies surrounding him now that I've ever seen for a public figure. This isn't like John Kerry. This is way more than John Kerry. So Tim Walz, my battalion provided security in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan. Tim Walz never ever deployed to Afghanistan. Tim Walz has also lied about deploying to war zones in Iraq in his rank. So here's one of the clips. I've got a whole bunch of things. We're going to run through a bunch of different details on this so you guys are fully aware of the actual story. So this is the first clip, and then we'll continue.
Background? I spent 24 years in the National Guard, some of that full-time. I was an artilleryman. I deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. My battalion provided base security throughout the European theater from Turkey to England in the early stages of the war in Afghanistan. And that same battalion is now in Iraq at this time. Background? I spent 24 years in the National Guard, some of that.
There's the first one. Next one from Cernovich. He says, this is the definition of stolen valor. We're going to play some of these clips, and then we've got some background on it, the actual details of it. He says, I carried weapons of war in war. Tim Walz did not.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at. I carried in war is the only have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place.
The weapons of war that I carried in war. That was the key clip there. So now here is a it speaks for itself. I've got to speed this one up a little bit, make sure we get through all of this, but here is a news story on this issue.
He's back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Barron's new message for voters in a moment, but this all starts years earlier when Barron says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is...
If this, Kate says, apparently they brought up the stolen valor stuff to Kamala's staff and she dismissed it thinking it wasn't going to be a big deal. See, I find that both mind-boggling and also completely believable. I think the Kamala campaign has no idea that they have been absolutely like sent out to the wolves. And I think probably a lot of the organizations surrounding the election fortification, they may not be aware of this either. But I think there are some very powerful factions within the DNC that have left the room. They have withdrawn. They're periodically making empty, calculated statements. And I don't know exactly what all these interests are. I've got some ideas of how they break down, and I can't really get into all that today. But I think the Kamala campaign has been left to die.
Is this North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Barron was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then a foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Vance would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Barron says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there. You know, when he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a command sergeant, retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and you know, all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just hooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 master sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion. Alpha News again asked Governor Walz if he's using the command sergeant major rank on his campaign website for political gain this year. A spokesperson said this has been in the news before and pointed us to a past story where Walz said, quote, normally this type of partisan political attack only comes from one who's never worn a uniform.
It's stolen valor is really what it is. I don't know of anybody else that's done what he's done, but we called it the truth about Tim Walz.
In 2018, Barron's gave the story the full court press.
We, retired command sergeant majors of the Minnesota National Guard, feel it is our duty and responsibility to bring forth the truth as we know it concerning his service record. I put together information on it and I sent it out to every single radio station and newspaper and TV station I could in the state. The bottom line in all of this is gut-wrenching and sad to explain. When the nation called, he quit.
Twin Cities TV stations and the Star Tribune were silent, even after Barron says the newspaper checked it all out. The Star Tribune endorsed Walz in 2018 for governor. Between lockdowns, riots, unchecked crime, and a charred police precinct, Barron felt he had no choice but again to come forward.
Allowing that to be burned down was just like having the Alamo get burned down. It's like, no, you defend that to the last man. If he would have went to Iraq, he'd still be hiding under his desk over there, because that's just, just the cowardice that I seen portrayed with him.
So how about when he also comes out and he calls you guys 19-year-old cooks?
I'd take any 19-year-old cook before I'd go to war with him. I don't know how he could even utter such a statement. I mean, it's just absolutely sad.
So this election year, it's all built up again to Barron's new grain bin message.
He called Jacob Fry an abject failure. So I was like, that's what he is.
Walz is a traitor, also made a return.
And the last one I put together, he said it himself too, as well, if they don't like my job, they can vote me out. So I wrote, we got to vote him out. We need to vote him out.
You guys in the chat have me cracking up talking about the way the guy's dressed. If you don't want to see it, don't look, bucko. He put on a clean new shirt. He's dressed nice. Oh, I like this old guy. It's funny because it seems like a sort of a weird thing to really care about now, the way that I see the military now. But these people are the ones that they're still in this older world, part of this older generation that takes this sort of thing more seriously. And that's a world that needs to come back. This sort of thing actually does need to be taken Okay. I think I'm back. It looks like it. Okay, yeah. Good. All right. Man, what a day. Router went down. Just internet, just had no internet for a minute there. Had to get things back up and running again, but at last, we're back. I wonder if it re-upped on Twitter. I'm curious to see. Not like it really matters that much. Ooh, what was that? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm back. Okay, cool. All right, well, sorry about that, guys. So what I was saying is that that if a man is in the armed forces, and especially if he's in a leadership position, and then they are going to be sent to a place where the actual shooting is, and the guy pieces out, and then tries to pretend and tries to trade on that reputation, yeah, absolutely. This guy's a fucking scumbag, and he should be treated like it. This is profoundly disgraceful behavior. And in particular, like, if you want to know how you should react to it, then listen to the guys who are the closest to that, whose reputation he's actually trading on, and they're fucking pissed. So, yeah, I think it's great that we don't want to lose these people. This is we're gonna miss this generation, the older Gen X and Boomer. We're gonna miss those people when they're gone. There's some things that they've retained, some of these values that they've retained that they keep embodied for us that are, we need to make sure that we keep them around, even after they're gone. Here's another one, another clip. Let me speed this one up a wee bit. Another guy talking about the situation. And I like this guy. I started off I never heard of Carl Higbie before, but I started off not really liking him that much. And then by the end of the clip, I was like, all right, I like this guy.
Day 2 of Tim Walz on the campaign trail as the VP nominee, and this guy has already become the laughingstock, but he has particularly angered veterans, like me, with previous claims surfacing that he actually went to war. We told you last night that he resigned early from his enlistment because his unit was to be deployed to Iraq. But that didn't stop him a few years ago when he was campaigning, saying, oh, I'd gone to war.
I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Weapons of war that you carried in war. Okay, Tim, what weapon and in what war did you carry it in? J.D. Vance had the same question today.
Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not.
Now, everybody is asking him this question, including, finally, the press pool is.
Governor, Vance accused you of stolen valor. Your response? Governor, Vance accused you of stolen valor. Your response?
Guy didn't even try to answer the question. This needs to be asked every single day, folks. This is super important. Look, this is the cardinal sin among veterans, to claim military service that you did not do. It's so verifiable that I'm like beside myself that someone would say they went to war when they didn't, especially when guys like him got out of the military because they were being called to war. The center of all this, all of his political campaigns have been, oh, look at me, I'm a veteran. And it's like Tim Walz either didn't notice or think we would notice, or maybe that we're too dumb to comprehend, like most Democrats. He just lies with impunity and thinks that therefore that's the truth. Yesterday at his rally, he took a jab at Trump. And look, I was like, bro, this is not going to end well for your political career.
First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself.
Look, I'm tired of I'm tired of your bone spur talking point for Vietnam. Okay, look, Trump was not in the military, but you want to talk about service, dude? Trump almost got shot in the head 3 weeks ago. He took one in the ear instead and stood up and yelled, fight, 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 and then went out and did another rally like 2 days later. DJT is a billionaire who could be sitting on a private beach somewhere that he owns, drinking margaritas in the sun, but nope. Instead, he's getting prosecuted in deep blue jurisdictions for things that aren't even crimes. In one case, by a prosecutor who was illegally appointed, who raided his Mar-a-Lago home. DJT spends every day getting crapped on by like 90% of the media, who just prior to him running as a Republican, they used to love him. Don't lecture me about service, Tim. You got a military paycheck for 24 years to prepare for war. And the second they called your name, you dipped out. You joined the military, but then when you were called to do the one thing the military trained you to do and counted on you doing, which is go to war, you bailed, Tim Walz. Just like you bailed on supporting our veterans when you were in Congress. One of Tim's former colleagues weighed in on this yesterday. Representative Jim Banks said on Twitter, quote, I served my first 2 years in Congress with Tim Walz on the House Veterans Committee. Walz opposed the most important veteran legislation passed in decades just because it was President Trump's. The Mission Act was very bipartisan, but Walz opposed giving our veterans better access to health care because he didn't want to give President Trump a win. Wow. Wow. This tells you everything you need to know about this guy.
I love this dude. He's saying like DJT and bro, and I don't know if he has a teleprompter. I don't think he does. I think he seems like he's kind of a meathead who someone put a suit on him and said, "Here, talk about stuff," and he's like, "All right, yeah, let's go. Let's talk, man. Fucking bro, like DJT, man." But he's hitting this pretty well. He comes off as if he's got like a natural talent for this, even if he's kind of goofy. But I don't think he's not talking like he's reading a teleprompter. So he's just riffing on this. Either that or he's incredibly good at reading a teleprompter and adding a lot of personality to it.
I mean, I can't say I'm surprised because Tim Walz is a radical party-centric ideologue, lunatic. And Trump, the guy, Walz is up there criticizing, did more for veterans than any recent president in my lifetime. And what did Kamala Harris do? His now running mate. What did she do with Joe Biden? They rehired all of the 8,000 bad VA employees that Trump fired with back pay and paid out massive bonuses illegally. And as a result of that out-of-control spending in the VA that didn't put veterans first, in as little as 2 weeks, folks, we covered it on this show, veterans' disability benefits, forget like actually going to war, unlike Tim Walz, might get cut because the VA is over budget. Not one word about that from the Democrat VP candidate who claims to have honorably served his country. Get bent. Tim Walz is the John Kerry of 2020. Actually, he's even worse. At least John Kerry actually was physically at war. Walz didn't even go. Look, if you know a veteran, this monologue will be posted on the Newsmax Twitter in, I don't know, like an hour, okay? Send this to them. Send it to everybody they know. Not one of the 22 million veterans should be voting for Tim Walz and Kamala Harris in the next 90 days. This election is shaping up to be a bunch of stolen valor, purple-haired, pride flag-waving betas and feminists versus American muscle who believe the nuclear family is great, limited government, and individual rights. Choose wisely, America.
Oh, I love this guy. Kate said, I'm still cynical about right-wing cable news, but this guy seems kind of genuine if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like that's the thing. He actually comes off as being really sincere, even though he's the whole thing is kind of cringy, but he actually like really believes in it. And there's just kind of there's kind of a charm to it. And the super tight suit, his lats are all like, okay. Got a thread here. This covers has a couple more specifics on some of the details. Ashley Hayek. Interesting name. She says, the CNN fact-check correspondent is peddling disinformation, gaslighting you, and straight up lying about Walz's service. Here are the 12 facts about Walz's service that nobody can disagree with. 1, he re-enlisted for 6 years in the National Guard on September 18, 2001. That means he obligated himself to serve until September 18, 2007. In 2003, then First Sergeant Walz, an E8, signed a Statement of Agreement and Certification to attend the United States Army Sergeant's Major Academy, where he agreed to serve for a minimum of 2 years after promotion to Command Sergeant Major. On September 17, 2004, then First Sergeant Walz was frocked to Command Master Sergeant E9 of the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery Regiment. By doing so, he was obligated to serve as a Command Sergeant Major until September 17, 2006, and he still maintained his enlistment contract, which obligated his service through September 18, 2007. In March of 2005, Walz and 125 were notified they would be mobilized and deployed to Iraq. On May 16, so 2 months later, 2005, 7 months after assuming his position as the Command Sergeant Major of 125 and 2 months after being notified he was going to deploy to Iraq, Walz quit by dropping his retirement papers. This was a full 18 months before the end of his Sergeant Major Academy agreement and 2.5 years before the end of his enlistment contract. Walz voluntarily signed 2 contracts to serve our country, went to school on the taxpayer's dime, used the rank of Command Sergeant Major, and quit without completing his full obligated time. He falsely filed paperwork with the Minnesota National Guard to retire as an E9, a command sergeant major, knowing full well he did not meet the obligations to retire as an E9. I'd be very curious to see if he received any retirement benefits based on being an E9. On September 10, 2005, the Minnesota National Guard discovered that he didn't fulfill his commitment and busted down his retirement rank from an E9 to an E8. His official retirement grade and rank is E8, a Master Sergeant. Walz cannot claim the title of Command Master Sergeant. He was only frocked as an E9 and never completed the requirements to be officially promoted to the rank of E9. He's lying and cannot claim the title of Command Master Sergeant as he has never met the criteria. He referred to himself as a retired Command Sergeant Major in his run for Congress and governor. This is a lie and stolen valor. Walz has never been to war in a combat zone, as he claims. His only deployment was to Italy for 6 months. Walz claims he couldn't run for Congress while serving in the National Guard while he deployed, but that's also a lie. He simply had to file paperwork with the Department of Defense, and he could have run for political office as so many other reservists and National Guard soldiers have. In 2008, Twin Cities TV station The Star Tribune were given the story. It was validated and confirmed, and then the mainstream media did what they always do, bury the story to protect the radical left. Which is interesting because 2008 was a very, very different time politically. It was a time when this was a much more like a much more hot issue. It would have been even more controversial back then than it is now. But what's interesting is that so they buried this story all the way back then, and it's not like they were planning 16 years ago, like, oh, this is going to be the guy that, you know, we're gonna take a shot at Trump, and then we're gonna force Joe Biden to resign by posting on Twitter, which has just been invented, but it's going to be the place where presidents resign. So we're gonna post on Twitter that he's stepping down, and then we're gonna Kamala's gonna step into his place, and then we're gonna slide in Walz behind her. Like, he was a nobody back then. However, there is some interesting stuff about his background with China, and how long he's been connected to China, that I wouldn't be surprised if that's another big drop that's going to happen, as whoever's dropping these things levels up the pressure. Here's a video from 2009 showing a veteran confronting his staff over claims that he served in Afghanistan. The veteran said Walz could go to jail for violating the Stolen Valor Act of 2006 for claiming to have served in Afghanistan when he didn't. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but just give you a taste of it.
Dave Phil, this is Travis Quinlan. We're both constituents and Iraq War vets. We're hoping to talk to someone about a photograph I have of Congressman Walz. Okay. Not sure if you have ever seen this picture before? Mm-mm. Okay. Well, in it depicts 2004 Afghanistan veteran.
Right.
Congressman Walz is not an Afghanistan war veteran, is he?
He served in Italy and part of Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay, but he didn't serve in Afghanistan, did he?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Hi, Rick. I'm Dave Phil. How you doing? Nice to meet you. There's a young lady in the other office that was helping us, but if you can, we're. You guys want to come in and have a seat? Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, have a seat. 2004, here in Manchester, what a great huge yourself. Yes.
Okay, so they're just talking to this guy.
And it's actually been posted on the internet for quite some time, and nobody quite realized what it is. But in this picture, Congressman Walz here is holding a sign that says "Enduring Freedom Veterans for Care." So tell me what your understanding of his military background is.
Yeah, I understand that he was called up in support of it. Yeah. Obviously, in support of that operation. That's how I've always understood it. And so the time that he, when he got called up, I guess I've always referred to it as, he was called up and served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay, so
that's the exact same phrasing that he used in the very first video we watched. He was called up in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Very carefully chosen language.
Is there any question in your mind what Enduring Freedom is? No. Okay, so I guess most people, and yourself included, would associate Enduring Freedom with Afghanistan.
Right, but okay. I mean, I think it, as I also understand that it encompasses a great deal.
Well, Operation Enduring Freedom is limited to Afghanistan and the airspace directly above. There's other units that are called up in support of, and I'm sure that's probably what his military orders said.
Right.
My concern, other than this picture, is that the congressman's website, his official biography, says simply that he was mobilized with his battalion in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Without any other details, don't you think it's reasonable people might assume that means he served in Afghanistan?
Perhaps, I guess.
Okay. So
anyway, so continues like that. I'll drop the link in here for anyone who wants to watch the rest of it. I've got to jump to the next couple of tabs that I've got here because I got to get wrapped up within 10 minutes or so. So this one actually, and this is part of why, I think if all the people who want to say, oh, this was a plan, I saw some people were saying something like the plan here is to have him take the heat off of Kamala so people don't pay as much attention to her because really the VP doesn't matter at all. And I just... How do you possibly get somewhere where you think that there's people who are sitting out there saying, you know what? Let's find the guy with all the dirt and let's make him the VP nominee. So everyone will just spend all their time talking about his egregious scandals, and that's how we're going to win the election. You cannot think of these people as like profound Machiavellians who are out there scheming. There are some people that are kind of schemy, but they're not intentionally like, oh, we're so confident in the way we're going to win this that we're going to give ourselves a whole bunch of scandals to deal with between now and the election. And this is how we're going to bolster Kamala's chances. This is fucking retarded, people. Come on. So CNN is even talking about this. It's not getting frozen out of the media. Even CNN is actually bringing it up.
Walz did make a comment, speaking to a group, he's done it a couple of times, where he has used language that has suggested that he carried weapons in a fighting situation. As you know, with your contact with the military, I know from coming from a military family, there is a difference between being in a combat area, being involved at a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. There is no evidence that at any time Governor Walz was in a position of being shot at, and some of his language could easily be seen to suggest that he was. So that is absolutely false when he said that about gun rights out there.
At this point, like I would not be surprised if he's forced to withdraw before the DNC, and I also think that there's a competitor ticket coming at the DNC. I've been saying this from the beginning. I don't think it's going to be Kamala. I think there's a competitor ticket. I don't know who it is exactly. I've got guesses, but those are just completely just shot in the dark guesses that everyone's guessing. I think there's going to be someone. And this, having Kamala there right now and putting this guy around her neck is a way of shoring up 2028. I think there's going to be a Hail Mary shot at the DNC to try to pull that out at the last second. And otherwise, this is probably part of why Josh Shapiro pulled out, because he's keeping his powder dry for 2028. Gretchen Whitmer, I think, is keeping her powder dry for 2028. Gavin Newsom is keeping his powder dry for 2028. You know, if you're like, oh, well, they're just doing this guy because, you know, they know that their voters aren't going to care. And so we're just going to give them some guy that says the things we want him. Why could they not use Gavin Newsom for this purpose? If you're just like, whatever, who cares? Who cares what the voters actually think? They're not going to care. Just do some guy. I think that she genuinely picked him for electoral reasons, and she's surrounded by a bunch of staff who are morons, and they're like, oh, those things aren't going to really matter. Like, oh, who cares? Because nobody that they ever talk to or they're ever around. You got a bunch of millennials running a presidential ticket. A bunch of urbane, shit-lib millennials who are like, whatever, who cares about stolen valor stuff? Nobody cares about that stuff anymore. If you had a single older person there who's like, actually, I don't know. You know, this would be a big scandal. This was the Clintonian Democratic Party would have recognized that this is going to be a massive PR headache. At the very least, it's just going to take a ton of resources to try to stamp this thing out. Now, they're not the people who are running this show, the Kamala campaign. I think they genuinely don't realize that they've been hung out to dry, and they don't have the intelligence to actually be able to do this well. So they're just bungling their way, face planting into humiliation, which doesn't also prohibit her from actually maintaining the nomination and going into the election and winning the quote unquote winning the election. None of these things are precluded from that, because this is all being made up in real time. And there's not a lot of unity going on. There's going to be more. The DNC is going to unite out of desperation closer to the election, but there's some big rifts in there right now. Okay. Last couple things here. Speaking of Tampon Tim, this is funny. Indian Bronson. Go listen to Indian Bronson on the Moment of Zen podcast. It was Moment of Zen with Hannah and Indian Bronson. I've always kind of liked Indian Bronson, and then I heard him on the podcast. I really like him. He's a good dude. Very intelligent. Fun to listen to. Seems good-natured. He says, nothing will prepare you for what it sounds like. And truly, I was not prepared for what this sounds like. This is Tim Walz, one of his most trusted advisors, who would likely be asked to serve in a Harris-Walz administration.
You have said that Governor Walz has shown up for your community. You are the first out transgender legislator in Minnesota history. What did you mean by that? Expand on it a little bit.
Yes, of course. When we elected 11 new LGBTQ members to the House 2 years ago and created the Queer Caucus, and I started pushing.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. It's funny watching on delay. It's the comments. Okay. Douglas Charles says the stolen Valor attention is taking eyes away from Kamala's record, so it kind of works. And this is exactly what I mean. No, it's not. Kamala's record doesn't matter. This is all. I should have had this tweet up here for today. Andrew Torba had another thing about the vibes. Taking attention away from Kamala's record to her VP pick, who within a week of being her VP pick is being saddled with all of these scandals. He's like a stolen Valor scandal, like a really blatant, obvious stolen Valor scandal, put together with him being very obviously a Chinese sympathizer and is super radical. He has tons and tons of attack vectors for relentless ad campaigns. Picking a VP who immediately is getting absolutely dragged across the media landscape with a bunch of scandals is not taking attention away from Kamala. This is her VP. If there was a bunch of scandals being dragged around about Vance, nobody would say, oh, well, they're taking attention away from Trump. Good thing now Trump doesn't have to worry about these other things because his VP pick has a bunch of scandals going on that he's having to deal with. The same thing goes the other direction. This is not taking the heat off of Kamala. Now she just picked a guy for her VP, and he's a fucking millstone. And they're going to have to dedicate time and energy to dealing with all of this that could have been time and energy spent on something else. This is absolutely not a galaxy-brained, I've got lots and lots of scandals, so let me pick a VP that has even more scandals because that's going to make things better for me. Nobody thinks like this. This is like trying to galaxy brain your way into coming up with something to be depressed about. You don't need to. You can just say, wow, they're running a really bad campaign. This is terrible. These people are incompetent retards. Last thing here, relatedly, now this one maybe even be a little bit more, a little sinister. I don't know. Laura Powell Esquire on Twitter says she's mother lawyer defending our constitutional rights and democracy in California. CA for governance. Team reality. Update. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, so she wrote this thing, cackling all the way to the bank. We're not going to read this whole part. It was July 25. Let's take a closer look at the process for filing to run for president and how exactly Kamala Harris purports to take over Joe Biden's campaign. The basic FEC filing requirements are actually quite blah, 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 blah. So she wrote that. She has this update. She says, last night, Kamala Harris personally filed an updated statement of candidacy, aka Form 2, to designate Tim Walz as her running mate. Since she used Biden's personal candidate ID number, which is P8, a bunch of zeros, 722, instead of her own P zeros 9423, the FEC records are convoluted. So Biden has a personal candidate ID number, and she has a personal candidate ID number. When she filed an updated statement of candidacy to designate Tim Walz as her running mate, she used Biden's personal candidate ID number, not hers. Her newly filed Form 2 shows up on Biden's personal FEC page. But if you look at the 2024 election cycle, Biden is erased and replaced with Harris, as if he was never running for president. Looking at Biden's campaign committee's FEC record, it's now associated with both Biden's and Harris's candidacies for president for the period of 2020 to 2022. But that makes no sense because Harris's presidential run in 2020 was never linked to Biden's, and she ceased her campaign for president in 2020 and did not run again until 2024. Now, Harris's personal FEC candidate ID number, 9423, which is supposed to follow her for all presidential campaigns for life, is somehow linked to Biden's presidential campaign in 2020. Only her vice presidential campaign was ever linked to Biden's, but that is separate from any presidential campaigns. Now, this is the first time I've ever heard about any of this stuff. I don't know if you were to go and drill into every other political candidate, would you find a lot of this kind of playing fast and loose with years and candidate numbers and all of that? I don't know. I don't know if this is unique to her, but I think it's interesting in any case. The current 2023 and 2024 FEC record for Biden for president, aka Harris for president, ID number blah, 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 is linked to two presidential candidates. Both are named Kamala Harris. One of these candidates is associated with Harris's candidate ID number, and the other, Kamala Harris, is associated with Biden's candidate ID number. The statement of candidacy that Kamala Harris filed on July 29 using Biden's personal candidate ID number now shows up under Harris's ID number. But last night's filing for that same candidate shows up for the other Kamala Harris who is running for president. Based on what happened previously, I suspect the FEC will shift these records in the future to make it seem like there aren't so many discrepancies between the names and the ID numbers. Confused? That's because these filings from Harris are irregular. If Kamala Harris had used her own candidate ID number like every other candidate in modern history, this wouldn't have been so complicated. But then it would have been difficult to make the case that she's entitled to Biden's war chest. Undoubtedly, these filings are trying to circumvent those pesky campaign finance laws. By the way, since Walz has never run for president, he doesn't have his own FEC candidate ID for a presidential run. According to the logic of Harris's supporters, Walz is equally entitled to any funds from the campaign committee associated with ID number blah, blah, blah. Oops. God damn it. And just as Harris felt entitled to file an amended statement of candidacy using Biden's personal candidate ID number because she was the vice presidential candidate, Walz could do the same, using Biden's personal candidate ID number to run for president if he wanted to. The Democrats could pass this campaign down in perpetuity without even obtaining the formal agreement of the prior candidate. This reminds me of a system of government that isn't considered anything like a democracy. So this could all be just a whole big nothing burger. It could be something that's massively illegal and corrupt and doesn't matter. It could be something that's just, it's not that big of a deal and it just gets tweaked with some bookkeeping. But it does make me wonder, this point that she makes about them being able to use Biden's personal candidate ID number to run for president in perpetuity makes me suspect even more that there's potentially a setup here for some sort of last-second candidate being plugged in. That was my takeaway from all of this. Duffhead says, yeah, this stinks of manipulating the process to transfer funds. Yeah, and being able to, like, if you're throwing a candidate out at the last minute who hasn't been rumored and hasn't been preparing and doesn't have all the documentation in order, and you don't want to have to follow all that documentation ahead of time, and you think, oh, we're just going to win and cover our own tracks, then this could actually, she could be onto something. And they might be actually setting this up to be able to plug in, you know, one of the Obamas or Hillary or someone like that. All right. Well, that was all the serious news sorts of things that I had for today. The very last thing I wanted to share here was something that George Mack posted on Twitter. It's a Steve Jobs email that he sent himself 13 months before he died. Whenever I reread this, I regret waiting so long to have read it again. And Straight Buster, yes, I agree. Sounds like grounds to test new legal theories to me. Yeah. And also looks to me like a potential attack vector for any of our guys who want to come up with something to do with their time and money. So I've always had a soft spot for Steve Jobs, in large part because my dad's has followed Apple really closely for a long time. But this I like the spirit that I hear in what he posted here. So this is September 2, 2010 at 11 p.m. He says, I grow little of the food I eat, and of the little I do grow, I did not breed or perfect the seeds. I do not make any of my own clothing. I speak a language I did not invent or refine. I did not discover the mathematics I use. I am protected by freedoms and laws I did not conceive of or legislate and do not enforce or adjudicate. I am moved by music I did not create myself. When I needed medical attention, I was helpless to help myself survive. I did not invent the transistor, the microprocessor, object-oriented programming, or most of the technology I work with. I love and admire my species, living and dead, and am totally dependent on them for my life and well-being. So, nice little thought to leave you guys with there. Thank you for showing up, guys. Sorry about the hiccup in the middle of the show, but I will be back here tomorrow morning, and I've got some other good stuff to go through with you guys there that I had to push off from today. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out. We got 116 watching right now and 57 likes. Let's try to get that up closer to 100 before you guys head out. And then follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled and join the Kingpilled Discord, kingpilled.com. Tomorrow evening, Friday night, we will be doing a Schizo stream. So if you would like to join us for that, then sign up, and you can any tier, any subscription tier you sign up at will get you access to the Schizo stream.